Welcome to Problem Solve, the podcast where me and a special co-host solve all your problems really easily, probably.
Problems? Are you kidding me? I don't have any problems. Okay, I might have a few, but I can work on them with you. Come on.
Hello, and welcome to Problem Solved. I'm Jeff Gunther, licensed professional counselor. I am your host. Well, actually, your co-host. Today, I have a very good friend joining me today. Her name is Claire Perlman. You can find her at Sex Clarified on Instagram. She is a sex and relationship therapist. She is so good. Better than me, actually, in a lot of ways. You'll find out why. She's just such a good, confident therapist. I've been a therapist longer, but she has the confidence that I wish I had when I was just a baby therapist. Anyways, we are talking about real sexy things today. The caller that's calling in today is going to talk to us about her relationship and being even more confident and sexy, doing some like dom and sub play. And it got me thinking about my own kinks and fantasies, right? I don't know if this is a thing. I have not looked into this. As a therapist, I probably should. Let me know if this is something that you think is true. But when I was really little, around third, fourth grade, fifth grade, that's when I started to masturbate. And I was like, this is great. I love masturbating. It was the golden days of masturbation for me, because I don't know if you know this, ladies, but when you're a boy and you're masturbating with your penis and you haven't hit puberty yet and you don't like actually ejaculate or come, then you can just masturbate for hours and have just sort of like one long sustained orgasm. It was amazing. It was a real sad day in sixth grade when I finally came. And I've been chasing that high, that fourth, fifth grade orgasm that I no longer can have today. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that when I was doing that, I was in my room. When you would like look out my window, I was on my room was on the third floor, and I was in this condo. And when I'd look out my window, there was the alleyway, and across the alleyway was another apartment building. And this apartment building housed a lot of like UCLA college co-eds. And the apartment directly across from mine was filled with these college girls. And it just sort of like fueled this little boy fantasy of like, I wish they were watching me while I was touching myself. Is this too much information? I'm not sure if I'm going to include this on the podcast, but I'm going to go for it. And so I started to develop this fantasy. It was the first fantasy I ever had. It was like, I wish they could look at me and see me. They never did. And I like kind of kept the blinds shut. So it never turned into like a creepy situation, but I always wished that they would look at me. And then I would look at them being like, I wish they would do sexy stuff. And it became this sort of like voyeuristic, it's hot if you're watching me and it's hot if I'm watching you sort of thing. And that was my first fantasy. And that has stuck. That is just like the main kink is voyeurism. I want to watch people. I want people to watch me. Anyways, that's what this episode got me thinking about, because we're talking about like sexy fantasies and kinks and fetishes and stuff like that. And I'm really excited for you to listen to the rest of the episode. Okay, maybe I'll keep this in. Maybe I won't. We'll see. Bye. This is a podcast where we explore the intricate world of relationships and navigate the complexity of mental health together. I am Jeff Gunther, a licensed therapist, but in this space, I'm your host, not your personal therapist or the therapist for our guests. This show offers a platform for open conversations about relationship and mental health challenges, providing insights and perspectives for educational and entertainment purposes only. It's crucial to remember that our discussions do not replace professional therapy or constitute a therapist-client relationship between myself, our callers, or you, our listeners. If you're dealing with personal struggles or seeking support, I urge you to consult with a qualified professional who can provide the personalized care you deserve. Thank you for being here. Let's dive in. Welcome to Problem Solved. Today I have with me my very good friend, Claire Perlman. Hi, Claire. Say hi.
Hi, Jeff. How are ya?
I'm good. Can you introduce yourself a little bit and tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah. So I am a queer Jewish sex therapist based in the Bay Area. And I go on all social media profiles by Sex Clarified, spelled normally. And I just love educating people about sex, relationships, poly, kink, whatever you can think of around the sexual relational world. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I'm happy you're here too. And I think we discovered not too long ago, or I discovered not too long ago, that Sex Clarified was like a play on
Yeah,
words.
play on my
Your
name.
name is Claire. Yeah, did not fucking realize that. And didn't you do like a poll on Instagram?
I did a poll because you told me that you had just figured it out. And I said, well, if Therapy Jeff isn't catching on, maybe I should ask the rest of my followers. And it was like 50-50 that half of them knew that it was a play on my name, but it's spelled normally. It's spelled not Claire. Right. It's spelled clarified. And the other half, most people who knew me personally knew that it was a play on my name. The rest of the people didn't quite catch on.
I feel like this is on you. You should have spelled it with your name.
Well, I went back and forth, but it was like going to be confusing if it was my name. I couldn't decide. So I went with this.
Still, it works, and I love it.
Thank you.
We've done like an Instagram live together.
We've done a couple Instagram lives. We talked about how to keep it spicy, about breakups.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. And you are kind
really
of
fun.
like one of my like go-to people when it comes to like very sexy questions. And we have a sexy question coming up with a caller. Her name is Gabby, and she's talking about Dom and sub stuff. How do you feel about the Dom and sub stuff?
Honestly, one of my favorite topics. I love talking about kink. I think we could all be having more kinky sex and learn a lot about kink, from negotiations to aftercare to all kinds of good stuff in there. And I'm excited to talk to Gabby.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so here's the call. Hello, Gabby.
Hello.
Hi, Gabby.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, and we're interested in what your problem is. So why don't you jump in? Tell us a little bit about it.
I mean, it's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully more pleasure comes of it.
That's what we're hoping, too.
Yes. So I like to think there's always, there's problems, but there's also opportunities. And so I see this really as an opportunity. So, I think since I was honestly first entering into my sort of sexual experiences, I knew there was something about dominance that really lit my fire. But I didn't quite know how to express it for, to be honest, the majority of my sexual career. But in finding sort of the right partner, sort of just to unlock some of the fantasy or the sort of intrigue in that area. And so what I'm bringing in today is, my partner and I really love exploring new boundaries in this space with bondage and choking, and want to keep trying new things to basically unlock our deeper dom and sub fantasies, which it could include things that are both innately sexual or non-sexual in that relationship and dynamic. So that is what I'd love to discuss with you all today.
Yeah.
I love that. This is one of my favorite topics to discuss.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I think Claire's going to have a lot of questions here. I'm also wondering, just for some background, how long have you been together with your partner?
A year and a half.
And how's the communication and sexy communication been going between you two?
I was very impressed because unlike in my past, he from the jump, maybe like the second time we really saw each other, wanted to define what turned us on. And so that conversation actually started much earlier than I was ever used to. At first, I thought it was sort of unsexy. But then I realized that for some people, that actually gets them way more comfortable to then really release and kind of let go or lean in. So I'd say the communication is very open.
I love that. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's lots of opportunity to explore different things. You're both able to talk to each other in a non-judgmental sort of open kind of way.
But yes. And I do think though that the more, maybe this is my take, but the more you actually care for a person and fall in love with them, the less that you want to go full aggressive or dominant, but that's like
interesting.
all that I want. Right. And so
Okay.
being able to kind of get him comfortable to know that that is not in any way disrespect, but in fact, maybe even a deeper respect, and sort of tips in that area as well.
Yeah. To have a little bit more like context of your relationship, are you switching, or is one person always the dom and one person always the sub?
It's interesting because in theory, I would say we don't.
You don't switch, or you don't
switch.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm just trying to get some context.
Yeah, no, but it is interesting because I've been asked that sort of before, and my go-to answer is no, definitely I'm always sub. But I think that I'm open to switching if that's something he wanted from time to time.
Okay, great. So currently we're playing with you sub and him as dom.
Yes.
Great. And are you, when you say like sexual and non-sexual, are you playing this DS dynamic also outside of the bedroom? Like, how often is the DS dynamic on?
So I think that's the nature of what I've come here today to sort of unlock again is there's some, but I feel like we could really build on it if it was outside of the bedroom more also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I find a real joy, or I don't know what a better word is to describe, like when I call him sir, and sometimes I'll playfully do it, in another setting, but it almost feels awkward when it isn't in the bedroom. And so I want to find ways to incorporate it so that it feels good for both of us, and kind of can set the tone before anything actually, starts to really heat up.
For sure.
Yeah.
And when you kind of like introduce it outside of the bedroom, is he open to it? Does he receive it well?
Yes. I think neither of us have had a partner in the past, though, that we felt this comfortable exploring with. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of like, what else can we unlock here? What else can we really learn about this dynamic?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really important that you're able to set the context of the DS dynamic with names. I'm pretty like a big proponent of that, because then you can figure out when the scene is kind of on or when you're talking through the DS dynamic. So like calling him sir, and I don't know if he has like a sub name for you, but many times there's like pet, princess, angel, whatever feels good for people. That can be a really clear indicator of, oh, now we're playing. And then if you want to switch out of the play, you can then use like whatever you otherwise call your partner. And that can be like a pretty good kind of verbal indicator of, I want to be in this DS dynamic right now, whether it's like over texting or it's in person, or it's also a good way for someone to be able to respond back and be like, oh, let's just say like outside of the scenes, he calls you Gabby. Then he could just be like, oh, Gabby, like, let's take this up later, and that can be also an easy kind of way that doesn't feel like such a rejection, but can just be like a pivot to, okay, we're not playing right now, we'll play later.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And I also love the idea of getting to have a sub name.
Yeah. I love a sub name.
Uh-huh. And something to acknowledge here that like Claire is kind of like getting to right now is that it's a pretty vulnerable thing to enter into one of these scenes, to like use one of these words, right? And it's kind of, it's scary. It sounds like the relationship has good communication. There's so much possibility because there's like lots of sexy open dialogue happening. You both seem to have like a lot of similarities and what you're wanting and what your kinks are, like all this stuff. But still, then you have to actually go ahead and do it. And that's kind of scary, right? It's really vulnerable. You're like putting yourself out there. And so doing what Claire is saying, like having a way to let the other person know that you're not like in that place or in that mood, but you love it. You want to like still encourage the behavior, and we'll do this later, is kind of an important thing. Do you think it would be a little uncomfortable or awkward or scary to like start doing this more often outside the bedroom for you?
No, I think it's exciting. I think we're just kind of like teenagers that don't quite know what to do kind of thing.
Yeah, that's so fun. Another thing you could do is you can have like a really clear kind of ritual around your DS dynamic. Like I know a lot of people who play in this way will, before they start the play, is like sub has to get on their knees, has to have the collar put on by them. Not saying that every sub has to be collared, just want everyone to know that. But if you're playing with a collar, sub gets on their knees, has to have the collar on, and then you know like the dynamic is on, and that's how we're playing. And that can be a really clear, like, okay, we're having this kind of ritual where we start play in this way. And maybe it's even like fantasizing about like, oh, I'm going to put the collar on you later, you know, whatever you want to put on them. It could also be like Dom buys their sub a bracelet or whatever. And like that, people like to wear sometimes like actual things, accessories out. Many subs who are in a DS dynamic all the time are wearing a collar all the time, or some type of collar, some type of jewelry, et cetera, et cetera. And if that feels good or playful or fun, you know, could also be a kind of nonverbal indicator of our play is starting, or like a reminder of, ooh, we get to have this play when we want.
Yeah, I like that. I think the ritual element definitely entices me. And I think the dynamic that we've sort of naturally been drawn to is the rope play. And he's a sailor with his knots, so it's very exciting to be so trusting and knowing that I'm in good hands, like very literally. But I think sometimes the transition from just sort of traditional intercourse to, oh yeah, let's get the rope out, and doing it in a way that we do have ritual around it could really kind of, you know, elevate this whole situation for both of us. Yeah.
I really think like having names can be such an easy kind of shift into that. Like, let's say you're having more vanilla sex, and you know, he's calling you Gabby or whatever, baby, whatever he calls you. And then he's kind of like, oh, well, does, you know, let's just say Angel is your name. Like, oh, does my angel want to, you know, play in this way, get tied up or whatever. And then it's like a very clear, like, oh, okay, maybe we'll shift in this way. Then it's also an option for you to like opt in to the DS dynamic or not. And it could be like, oh no, I don't really like, Angel doesn't feel like playing that way. Or like, oh yes, like let's get the rope out or whatever.
Love that.
Yeah. Do you feel like, Gabby, do you feel like you typically, both of you typically do opt in whenever it's sort of like presented, or is it hit and miss?
I think it is a hit and miss. And I think that's maybe part of where the foreplay element comes in for me, of wanting to sort of, whether it's using the name or opting in and like, does my angel want to play, or just having something that leads into this so it feels less sort of, okay, all of a sudden we're going to just get into that zone.
Yeah. I think that's why I really like these like verbal, nonverbal opt-in options, because it really, it gives people the opportunity to be like, okay, yeah, I'm into that. Or like, no, I don't want to play like that right now, but I can't wait to play like that later. Because I think that like a DS dynamic is a lot of effort a lot of the time for either side, you know, like really letting yourself drop into subspace and like the Dom, whatever they're working through to be a Dom, like all of that can take a lot of effort in a way that like more vanilla sex doesn't always take as much effort or like as much brain power. And so I think that it's important to be able to decide when you both are into it or not.
Yeah, for sure. Claire, if you were to give Gabby like a little bit of homework for the next week, where do you think she and her partner should start?
Okay, I would want them to choose a subname for Gabby. I think that's really important. It sounds like there's a Dom name of Sir, but I want y'all to solidify whatever the Dom name is. 2, I would love for y'all to find some type of ritual that starts and also ends the DS dynamic. So part of playing in DS is aftercare is really, really important for any kind of kink experience. So part of what I hear you say, Gabby, is like feeling nervous about the intimacy part of like when someone is doming someone that they really, really are intimate with, emotional connection, et cetera, it can sometimes feel like, oh, maybe I'm taking advantage of them, or they don't feel like I respect them, or et cetera, which is why aftercare can be such an important part of this. And that can be the part where you remind each other how much you love each other, how much you respect each other as partners, how much this is play. So one, creating dom and sub names that are really clear to each of you that you agree on. Two, creating a ritual to begin play and also an aftercare ritual. Does that feel like enough homework? Should we do more?
Gabby is typing this down. Can you hear her?
Can you tell I'm taking fastidious
I love it.
notes?
Please.
I mean, I think the names piece, like instantly, that is very exciting. I hear you saying around the rituals for starting, like it could be a verbal opt-in, could be kneeling and putting a collar. I'd love just to hear some other potentials or like experiences that could be in that start ritual.
Yeah. It could also be a specific dress up. It could also be like, let's say sub always wears it's X, Y, and Z, or dom always wears X, Y, and Z. So you could have like a specific dress or attire. The other thing you could do is you could sit down, clothes on. Whenever I encourage people to talk about their sex, what will be in their sex lives, I want them to do it clothes on outside of the bedroom because it's so much less vulnerable. You could have a discussion clothes on around what scenes you might want to play with. And you could even like name those scenes like, oh, maybe we want to do this, daddy little girl fantasy. Maybe we want to do this like teacher, bad student fantasy, like whatever you want to do. And you can name those. And then later, like let's say, a few days later, be like, oh, were you interested in doing that teacher fantasy tonight? And so like, then you're like, you've set it up. And so you're clear on what's going to happen later. I'm really into negotiating sex, I think for vanilla and kinky sex, especially kinky sex. How do those sound, Gabby?
Those sound exciting, and I'm excited to have a clothes-on outside bedroom conversation about it.
Yes, very important.
And I think a similar question back to you, Claire and Jeff, around aftercare. So any sort of examples beyond just reminding each other that we love each other?
Yeah, I mean, I think many couples like to do specific cuddling, like maybe they want to hold each other, maybe they want to talk about what part of the play they really loved, what part of the play they're looking forward to next time. Also, what part of the play maybe they didn't like so much and they want to try differently. I also would encourage that to be clothes on, not immediately after. Sometimes people like to clean each other up. Sex can be messy, and that can be like a very sweet kind of aftercare. It can be someone runs someone else a bath. Maybe you take a bath together. Maybe you shower together. Maybe you like sit and like hold hands. Whatever really feels good and connective. Like to me, aftercare is connection outside of the sexual play. Jeff, do you have anything to add there?
I'm so bad at aftercare. I have this like compulsion to just get up and go. Like, what are we doing next? I know it's so bad. It feels really disconnecting, understandably, to like any partner that I'm with. But I sort of like want to get this, like, are we going somewhere? Or are we going to sleep? Let's make a decision here. So I have to really force myself to not do that because that's not where my values are. That's not who I want to be. But there's like this urge to just like get up and go. I was interested. So I love everything that Claire is saying. I'm also interested in like, do you already have some sort of like natural aftercare thing that typically happens? And do you like that? Is that working for you so far?
Yeah, no, hearing just sort of general examples. I mean, again, I like to use it does feel just like high schoolers learning like what feels good kind of thing.
It's so fun.
Yeah. So, but just even hearing then like, oh, this is, what we're defining as aftercare. I think we do naturally do that actually very well. I think it's sort of unlike Jeff, just kidding.
Drive him, Gabby.
But I do think that is where, like, I read recently this term soft dom. And I think that is sort of what I love the most about my partner is that there is this soft layer that kind of is the undertone of the dominance. but I feel that sometimes the softness is really, it's already enough, right? And so I don't think he at all has any issues with the aftercare piece. It's almost like maybe those signs or those like green lights going in to go like even signal him that this is your safe space to be fully dominant.
Yeah.
And setting that tone, I think, is a really exciting piece of this because, yeah, I do think our aftercare is pretty beautiful. So getting to a place where it's a little bit more like I want to feel the danger. Like, let me feel the danger.
Yeah.
It's good. Like,
there's one other piece that I want to mention on that is if you want to feel the danger, your dom has to, both of you, I think, have to feel really confident in each of y'all's no's. So many times a dom does not want to push a sub too hard because they're not confident that the sub will give that really confident no. And many times it can be hard to access that when you're in subspace. So playing with making sure you have either the traffic light system, which is green, yellow, red, and I'll explain that in a second, and a safe word, which can honestly just be safe word, or being really confident that you can just tap your dom and say less or not that or no. And so the traffic light system that I've always taught and utilized is green is you can keep going. You can even increase it. Yellow is this is good where it's at. Don't increase it, but you can stay right here. And red is you've gone too far, but we're not stopping play, but you've gone a little too far. It's hurting. It's, you're humiliating me too much, whatever it is. You just say red or red light or whatever, and then you back it, the dom backs it off to yellow, and then you're back where you want to be. But red doesn't mean play stops. So it's green, yellow, red, and then safe word. And so when safe word is said, that means you've crossed a line. And usually it's very unintentional, right? But you've crossed the line and you go immediately into aftercare. Like play stops and you go straight to aftercare because that's where you want to have that connection again. And it's like, okay, we didn't mean to go there. We want to connect. We want to make sure everyone feels safe. And so really leaning in, some people really like the traffic light system because it feels sexier to be able to like say that kind of thing instead of like less or more or whatever. Many other people just like to say less or more or like back it off or whatever. But as long as you each feel confident that the sub is able to express their no, which as I said, can be a very hard thing, that I think is when you can really push the boundaries of feeling the danger, as you said, which can be really, really fun and sexy.
Yeah. Something that just really clicked was I feel like when we've used a safe word and it doesn't seem to do what I've wanted it to do because it does just stop everything. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like that's actually what it's meant to do.
Yes.
So what I'm looking for is red because I don't want everything to stop. I just don't want more
of
or
that.
Increase or a little, maybe slightly less. Okay,
yes,
that's
red definitely
fantastic.
Means back it off. Red is don't stop the play. I'm still into it, but you've gone a little too far and I want to back it off to yellow. And then you can stay there. We can keep going. So I'm glad that resonated.
Yeah, because I feel like in even almost defining what the safe word's meant to do, I think he's honestly, in all fairness, done exactly what you just outlined, right? Where it's just like stop the show. But then I'm like, oh no, I didn't want the show to stop. I just wanted that specific element to have the volume turned down.
Yes, exactly.
I think the stoplight system is fantastic.
Oh, great. Good. I'm glad.
Way to go. Okay. So do you feel like you're clear on your homework and you're ready to present?
Well, let me review my notes really quick. Okay.
Great.
So I'm choosing, we're getting a sub name from me. Excited. And we're solidifying the dom name, finding rituals for the start and the end, and figuring out what those dynamics might sound like or feel good. But this is something that we'll determine prior, and kind of work through feeling out the traffic light system. Is that? Yeah. I think that's my homework, right?
Yeah. I think that sounds great. You could even, if you want to make it more specific, like come up with 2 scenarios, 2 fantasies that you guys might want to try. And those will be created, clothes on outside of the bedroom. That doesn't mean you have to do them, but just coming up with like a solid 2 fantasies that feel exciting to y'all.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm excited to meet with you guys again next week and talk
Great.
all about it.
I'm so excited.
Are you feeling like nervous or anxious about having these conversations at all?
I'm a little nervous that he doesn't quite know that there's another call.
He doesn't
Because
know
I
there's a
didn't want to
follow-up.
put the pressure on him that like he's got to perform, and so he knows I'm meeting and I'm learning about stuff, and he thought that was really exciting for us.
I love that.
So I didn't want there to be like the performance pressure.
Great. I mean, I think that's positive that it wasn't like, okay, and then I have to report back.
Right.
But he'll be listening to this later, so I love you, baby.
I love
He
this
sounds
so
like
much.
a real sweetie. Okay, so we're going to let you go, and we'll talk to you next week to follow up to see how this went.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me, Jeff and Claire.
Thanks for joining us.
That was amazing. That was lovely.
Oh, I loved it. That was honestly one of my favorite things to do in the whole world.
Yeah, I feel like you were like shining the whole time. That was like so
Oh,
in your
thanks, Jeff.
ballpark. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
you're so
I
good.
do talk about this often in my personal and professional life. I just want people, if they're having kinky sex, to be able to have the best kind of kinky sex, the most satisfying, and vanilla sex. That I want everyone to be having the best kind of sex.
Me too. We both want that. And it's funny because do you think that this is true that like a lot of times when you're having sex with somebody, you start to have like regular sex with them, maybe there's kind of like a natural dom and sub thing that happens.
Ooh, like a power dynamic. I
There's
think
a power
that
dynamic?
often there is some kind of power dynamic. I think especially with straight couples, there can be a kind of ingrained power dynamic, which is why I really like to switch that up. I love a switched up power dynamic.
Yeah, and there's something like I don't know, like almost liberating putting words to it, being like, this is what's going on, this is what's happening, what do we want to do with it, right? And I think Gabby is like, she came in, you can feel her excitement, can't you?
Yes.
Of like, what's the next level? I found somebody who's such a good match. Like, give me some instructions, right?
Yes. I love that. And I think that speaks to how little we all talk about sex and how little there is for like sexual resources, and why I think talking about it and teaching about it is so fucking important. Because I want everyone to be able to have this access. Like Gabby kept saying that she felt like they were high schoolers. And I think that speaks to, one, the level of excitement, which is so sweet, but two, the like lack of knowledge, the lack of resources. And like, that's part of why I do what I do and why I do social media, because I want people to have access to those resources for free.
Yeah, for sure. There was something actually that she said that there was a part of me that like I wanted to explore it a bit more, but I didn't. and I was like, I'm just going to save this for Claire afterwards. And I was wondering if you've heard this before, where she talked, I don't know if I can remember it exactly, but she was like, yeah, I want to explore the dom sub thing, and I really like care and love my person, and I almost, it was like I want to like protect him, almost like I want to like, I'm being like almost like hypersensitive to his needs. Do you remember when she said something like that?
She said something like, when you become more intimate or like more emotionally involved, it can feel like less able, like less access to the dom sub dynamic.
Yes, that was it. Yeah. Have you heard that sort of thing before?
Yes. I mean, I think people, especially when we're doing a dom sub dynamic, especially when it's a straight couple, when the dom is the male, I think that there can be that inherent, social patriarchal dynamic that happens. And there's a fear there that, we're kind of just moving into those same spirals that are inherently unsafe for women. And so I think that men who are checking their privilege and their power is they don't want to overpower their female counterpart in this sexual experience, even though it's a agreed upon and there's enthusiastic consent. And so I think that that is kind of what sometimes happens. And then in this scenario, the female counterpart is like, wait, but I want you to overpower me. But there can also be a lot of vulnerability and fear in asking for that, because like the feminist movement tells us that like, we're not supposed to want that. And so that can be a really hard dichotomy to kind of live in between. And then also to understand that like, yeah, I want you to like, you know, hold me down, push me down and call me all kinds of names or tie me up where I can't, you know, move my body parts. But then also I want you to know that like you respect me as a partner and, you know, can also like listen to whatever I have to say outside of the bedroom. So I think that could be a really hard dynamic to navigate. And that's kind of what I heard from Gabby.
Yeah. And it feels like the more like trust and safety and confidence and connection in the relationship just all together makes it so that you can like really play around more easily in the bedroom and trust your person. There was, and when you were talking about the light, the red, yellow, and red
the traffic light system,
the traffic light system, and then the safe word and everything, it was reminding me of this time where I was playing around with somebody and she used a safe word and it went right directly into aftercare. Yeah. But it was, I felt so guilty that I was just like, I'm here for you because I crossed a boundary. We quickly caught it. And now we're like transitioning into aftercare. That was like good on us for like quickly doing it and for us like transitioning. But then I was so like riddled with guilt and feeling like why would she ever trust me? It's understandable that I like made this mistake, but I was afraid that like we would like never explore these things sexually again, or even possibly the relationship would end. So there's like, I feel like the aftercare, you tell me, like will like likely focus first maybe on like the person's whose boundary that was maybe crossed or pushed. And
if
then
we've gotten to a safe word part, right. I mean, I think that's important. You bring up a really important aspect of aftercare that like, it's not just for the sub. It's for both. Like the dom is really also very vulnerable in accessing this kind of power and control over this other person. And that can be a really scary scenario that you just described. And I'm glad that you guys were able to use the safe word and that you were able to then transition immediately into aftercare. But I think that this is part of the vulnerability and trust that comes with playing in kink, is that like you might get to a point where safe word needs to be used. And there can be a lot of feelings around that from both sides, but hopefully the foundation that you've built as just like relationally, you are able to meet each other and understand that it was a mistake and that you were immediately able to transition. I mean, I think it's way more damaging if you use a safe word and then nothing happens, right? Or like, or you don't,
of course, go
to aftercare.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think it can be really hard, but I also think that like it's almost like part of the risk that you take.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was like, I think that we both, like when this happened with me, we both didn't even imagine that it would like get to that place. We were so in tune with each other, right?
Yeah.
Like that wasn't a risk. And then it happened, and then we transitioned into aftercare. And then I was like, internally, I was like, immediately, I don't ever want to fucking do this again. I feel so bad that I hurt something, that I like accidentally went over this boundary. But you know, we talked about it and we like, but it took a while, it took like a few sexy sessions, right? To kind of like get back into our confidence. And that's okay if that happens.
Totally. That's happened to me with a partner. We had so much trust, so much vulnerability, like so much experience playing together. And then I like had to be like, wait, like safe word, like we have to stop. And we went immediately into aftercare. And it was so shocking though to me because I was like, this never would have happened to us. Like we, you know, we're like listening to each other and we knew exactly what was happening. But instead we had to go immediately into aftercare, and they reassured the fuck out of me. And, you know, we were able to just kind of like talk about what happened and move forward. But it definitely, it took some like nervous system regulation and connecting again outside of the bedroom to be able to access each other's like sexy side again. And that's totally okay.
It's totally okay. And it's totally fine if like repair work needs to happen and it needs to happen over days or weeks or whatever it is. Yeah, exactly. I have a feeling that like Gabby's going to be really excited to do all the things that you told her to do.
I cannot wait to hear what they come up with. Low-key, I hope we get to hear her sub name, but we may or may not,
I feel like, the listeners didn't get to see it, but I feel like her face lit up whenever she
was
talked about her.
so excited about it. So it was so sweet. I loved it.
Yeah.
That's the kind of sex I want everyone to be having, like that they are excited about, like whatever it is, for them to just be excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. Did you notice anything else in our talk that you wanted to bring up?
I think it was just, I loved obviously I'm a huge sex nerd, like otherwise I would not be doing this job, but I liked the, both of us being able to approach it from kind of our expertise. Like I was really into talking about the real nitty gritty of sex stuff. And you were also able to remind us of like communication and anxiety and all these things, which like, obviously I also do in session, but like when it comes to, kinky stuff, I'm just like, let's talk about the kinks.
We're a good balance. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was good teamwork.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I can't wait to hear how it goes. So we'll follow up with her later. Okay.
Everyone has to stay tuned.
Yeah. Stay tuned. There you go. Hello. We're back with Gabby. Gabby, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Gabby.
Back.
Hi. I just wanted to mark for the listeners, we were supposed to talk to you like a week after, but scheduling got in the way. And so we're talking to you like almost 2 weeks afterwards. So we're expecting like almost 2 weeks of improvement, basically.
Life-changing sex.
Yeah. Big stuff.
Definitely, we've got more time to tell some stories here. So yes, I'm excited.
Oh, good. Yeah. So clue us in. Tell us how it's been this last couple weeks.
So I think that the biggest thing that was like a whoa moment was definitely around the kind of moving away from having just one safe word that kind of was stopping the show, and moving into like, we probably don't really need it as often as I'm saying it, and that's kind of slowing us down. So creating there was like a big aha moment for my part. Like I saw his eyes go, oh, like we can use the stoplights. Like that would keep me super comfy and in the zone. It was like, okay, like new, like sex dynamic unlocked, and something that like also was interesting to me. And I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter if I share this or not. I'll just share it.
Go for it.
So we what the old safe word used to be, we gave it sort of like a ceremonious reintegration.
Oh my God, I love that.
It became my subname.
Oh my God. Wow. Wow.
And it was
I love it so much.
And now it's, cause it always like used to like make him feel a type of way cause I wasn't evidently using it correctly. And so now he's like, this is my name now for you. Like I claim this word,
Ooh, that's so sexy. Yeah. I love it.
Oh, now for our listeners, if you're curious, my subname is Bunny. And can we think about how weird of a safe word that was too?
Listen, people love, I know, I was like, what safe word did they choose that could also be a subname?
Yeah.
I love that so much. I think that's such a sexy reintegration, and I'm just absolutely thrilled that it feels like, a new kind of sex thing unlocked.
Yeah.
I love that too. I think Bunny is really good. Interestingly enough, after our episode, I was talking to my girlfriend about like Dom and sub names and trying to come up with some, and we were having a really hard time coming up with a list of different ones. And so we asked ChatGPT.
And they also came up with Bunny? Is that what we're about to hear?
Yes. Bunny was one of the 10 sub names they came up with. The other ones were Pet, Princess, Kitten, Little One, Angel. Bunny, Doll, Treasure, Butterfly, and Sub. But Bunny was one that we really liked that we didn't actually go with, but still, very solid choice.
I so appreciate that feedback, man. If ChatGPT approves, then
Right?
And Jeff and his girlfriend,
Jeff.
that's
Yeah,
it. That's all you
exactly.
need in life.
Okay, so good. We got your sub name. Did you come up with a Dom name for him? How did that go?
the homework was to solidify, right? And so we did solidify, sir.
I love it.
It just felt right, and like we didn't need to reinvent the wheel on that one.
So the top 10 Dom names from ChatGPT are,
Please.
because I'm sure you're interested, Master.
Jeff has this printed out.
I do. Master, Sir, King, Captain, Boss, Chief, Commander, Mr. Jeff, Guardian, Professor. So
Okay, I'm sorry. Can we take a moment and hear? Can you just hear how gendered both of those were? It's the
I
sub
asked
names were
them
so
to
gendered.
be
Did you say
gendered.
specifically?
I
Okay, you asked them to
specifically
be
said,
gendered.
yes,
Okay, I was like,
yes.
what is happening with this immediate gendered?
Right.
Okay, great. Well, if you asked, then they delivered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you got Bunny, and you solidified Sir. Have you been using them throughout the week, like outside of the bedroom?
Yes, and that was another piece of the homework, was like inviting it in, right? And like having a like part of the ritual became being able to switch into the play by using the names, right?
Yes.
And being able to kind of also, if that's not the vibe of the moment, kind of go back into Gabby's here, or my partner's name is here. And having like set the expectations in this like clothing on outside the bedroom conversation, then it wasn't like a rejection. It was like, okay, we already have these frameworks, right? And like,
How was that negotiation?
I think luckily my partner and I are both really just like clarity in our lives. And when we have clarity,
Exactly.
he's like, yes.
Sex
But-
clarified. Got it.
Yeah,
There it is. It's
So
we got the name.
brand recognized. So I think that was really powerful for us, because it did happen in practice. I'm famously not a morning person. And he is like hard on, ready to go, testosterone pumping through his veins, And one morning he leaned over and he was like, Bunny, ready to play? I was like, Gabby's not ready today. Or like this
I
morning.
love that.
And I was like, I could sleep for another 3 hours kind of morning. But I was still ready to, get funky with it, but just not quite in that space.
I love it.
And there was like no, and it was only received with like no problem kind of vibes. So that was awesome.
That is ideal, honestly. I'm so glad y'all are able to like check in and pivot, and it's still sexy and like doesn't stop the flow. I think that's really like what we're aiming for, and can be hard to do.
Yes. Because I also was like, oh man, like, should I just go into bunny space? I was like, no, like, there's reason we talked about this. Like, I think, Claire, you had said last time, does my angel want to play? And so he's incorporated that immediately, and it was just like, cool, like, this is working, And then when it's a yes, then it's like a fuck yes.
I love that so much. When we can honor our no's, we can honor our yeses even harder.
Damn right. And another piece, though, that, was like how arbitrary it is to actually come up with, like, it's harder than it seems to come up with a safe word. And, but we're both like sports oriented, once upon a time people, but like not currently. So it was like, okay, if this is our sports arena, then like time out.
Classic.
Great.
Of course.
Yeah.
But he was making fun of me because when we had this original, like, okay, like hold court, talk about all these like expectations, we had solidified that new word, or new, 2 words, I suppose. And then the next day I was like, wait, what did we pick? He's like, oh no, like, you can't do that to me. I was like, oh, right. I swear I won't forget. Now he's like, okay, the huge part of this trust is like knowing that you know what it is. It's like, okay, locked and loaded, ready to go. I know what it is.
I'm so glad you remembered what it was.
Yes.
Yeah, this is great. Were any of the conversations like awkward or hard to have? Were you both kind of having them with in a non-judgmental, open kind of way?
Yes, I think like 90% was, really just like open hearts, open minds, open spirit around the whole, like building this together. I do think that there was a level of, I don't want to say emasculation, but I do want to say like maybe of ego bruising when we started talking about fantasies we might try.
Oh, interesting.
And that was a little bit unexpected to me. So I'll give an example. Like there's, like when we talk about kind of like toys and like what would be fun to experiment with, there were certain things that I was interested in, like how would we feel about exploring this or that I wasn't expecting a kind of like, oh, really? Like you would need that to enjoy? So I was interested for any kind of follow-up advice in this call, kind of maybe as we play around with like the toy space, how it doesn't have to mean that I'm not satisfied by no toys, but that it's a fun integration in addition to the pleasure and satisfaction that I definitely already receive. I'm curious from Jeff and Claire what you guys think.
That has been something that I've like personally had to work through on my end, even though I'm such an evolved man, as you know. There is something, I don't know, maybe it's because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, or maybe because there's just like toxic masculinity, or maybe there's just sort of like men are like competitive, or the messages that I received verbally and non-verbally, whatever, where it's just like, I should be the only thing that you need to please your body. There's like, and then if I am that thing, then that makes me a sexy guy or a strong man, or, and if you're like using a toy, then like I'm comparing it to my own penis or something, right? Like, and I want to be the biggest thing in this room. There's like all that stuff that's going on that I don't think when I was like an adolescent or in my 20s that I like had a good understanding or grasp on. It was just sort of like this automatic reaction. And now I feel like I'm good and I love toys and they're really hot and sexy, but there's still a part of me that I always have to kind of like, I don't know, be with or be aware of, that like this is coming up. There's a part of me that feels intimidated. It's an adolescent part of me, or it's a toxic masculinity part of me, and I'm going to like have compassion towards it. But it's a journey that I have to take on my own. It's been helpful to talk to my therapist about these things in the past. It's been helpful to talk to my other guy friends who've also experienced the same sort of thing and have been able to like move through it. So what was your like initial reaction when this came up in your conversation?
Like, oh no, I did not want that to go that way, because it's like intention versus impact kind of dynamic, right? Like my intention is great. Like we're unlocking all these things. What else could be in play here that we're exploring? But the impact meaning I'm not measuring up, and now she's finally telling me what she really wants.
Yeah, that's the narrative that he's telling himself. There's a lot of pressure, especially in heterosexual sexual dynamics, for the man to be responsible for everyone's orgasm, himself and his partners. And it's a really fucked up dynamic that I think really contributes to this of being like, well, if I am not the one who's responsible for it, then something's wrong with me, or like she's not satisfied. And I think that that's where part of the competition comes in with the toys, or feeling like threatened in any way. I think it even comes up with like lube. Like if I can't get my partner wet enough, like am not responsible fully for her orgasm or whatever, her pleasure. And I think that it really does a disservice to all of us. I think that, allowing him to have his feelings, which it sounds like you did, recognizing those feelings, acknowledging that like that was not the intention, that was not that your intention was different than the impact that happened, and taking responsibility for the impact. And seeing like what is beneath those like fears. Like, yeah, is it that he feels like maybe you've been lying to him this whole time and you're really not satisfied? Or is it that he feels like, oh, well, maybe you won't need my dick anymore? Or like, you know, I will be, you know, not important in our sex life. And so really speaking to those fears and reminding him that like, this is in addition, this is not a replacement. And it's a way to just have a larger sexual vocabulary. Like how boring for us to only have one way to speak about sex, which is, you know, PIV or whatever. Like we want to have a larger sexual vocabulary. Don't we want to write a whole fucking novel about our sex lives? Like that includes chapters with toys, with lube, with sometimes only toys, you know, with sometimes only hands, like that kind of thing.
I love that. Larger sexual vocabulary to write a novel about our sex lives. I just like the positioning of that.
Yeah, because it's like positive and it's fun and it's like, let's do this thing together. Like, I think that's what happens when we get into any kind of like conflict or disagreement with a partner is we position ourselves opposite each other. Right. And then it becomes distancing. And so how can we reconnect around this? Like, I'm trying to write my sex life with you. Like, I want you in it. We are the main authors. What are some things we can sprinkle in that will just add?
Yeah. Love that. What do you think, Jeff?
Yes, I think everything Claire is saying is really good. It's funny because I would imagine that if you like phrased it that way, he would be like, he'd totally agree with that 100%. And while that's happening, there's also still a part of him that feels a little intimidated about or like feels uneasy. And there's going to have to be kind of like, all right, well then what do you need, buddy? Like, how can you feel better? Do you want to be the one that's in control of it? Do we get to use it on you as well? Maybe that's a little much, but there's like, how do you want to integrate it? Let's talk about different ways to integrate it. So there's also like, I don't know if this is what he's feeling, but it's like, it can get real deep. Like with me, it's like, there's a part of me that's just like, oh, it's so fucking annoying having a penis when I'm having, cause like, I have to make sure it's hard. I have to make sure it's getting up. It's like, I like putting all this pressure, like, sex will not be good unless I have like a super hard dick. And now you have this toy that's just like naturally hard all the fucking time. Fuck that toy. I'm jealous of it. Like it doesn't have to deal with the anxiety and the pressure and, you know, like the spotlight on it. Right. So there's like all these like funny little avenues that people, that penis havers can like feel really weird feelings with toys. And it's sort of like just needs to be acknowledged, you know, empathized with, understanding, and then how do we like push through it? This is a growth edge for you. We want to grow in this relationship. What do we need to do? And if we can like integrate this, then we get to integrate another thing, and we get to continue to grow and write this novel that Claire is talking about. So I want to just like normalize the reaction that he has, and then like encourage you all to keep on pushing forward.
Yeah, I think that's also, should he listen to this, would be very validating because it should be normalized. I think, you know, for me to expect like, no, this shouldn't affect you in any way. You should completely understand where I'm coming from would be a little ridiculous. But I think like it's step one, kind of what I'm hearing is like truly validate and like with grace so that he also in turn feels like there's a space that he can do that for himself. And it's not just like, this is so strange that you feel this way. Not at all.
Right.
But then also like, what does that look like? If we validate as kind of step one, step two is like integrating or imagining how it would feel good or how it feels aligned with his sense of sexuality and his place in that for the both of us. My thought was like, well, what if we go sex toy shopping like together?
I was going to say
great
that.
spots in the Castro, you know, if you have any that you want to plug.
Good
no
vibrations.
Pun intended.
I'm obsessed with it.
Good vibrations.
Mr. S. Yeah.
Okay. And that was another thing I was going to do a follow-up advice piece on. Like, I think I kind of have a sense of how to approach that field trip, but if there's any advice and maybe things I wouldn't have considered or ways to kind of make that feel good for both of us in that shopping experience.
I think acknowledging that you don't have to buy anything, that like it can just be exploratory, that like really always grounding both of you in the fact that like this is a together thing. This is not just like a for Gabby thing. This is we are building this part of our vocabulary. We're doing this together. We're just going to check it out. We might not buy anything. Make it a whole fun thing, like get lunch before, whatever after, talk about it after, and really like negotiate what would feel good. Maybe you just buy like lingerie or something. I don't know, like something that already feels like accessible potentially. Cause you want to be able to come away with it ideally with like a positive feeling. Right. And like, with the acknowledgement that there will probably be some other feelings that come up, anxiety, trepidation, fear, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Make sure that it's like a playful experience, like Claire is saying. And I don't know if this is helpful, but for me, sometimes it's really helpful to talk to the people that work there. Just the way that they like handle things and talk about things makes it feel like so normal and grounded and not like a big fucking deal. You know what I mean? So yeah,
100%.
So, yeah,
they're the experts and they see this shit all the time. And like, you can go up to them and just say, hey, we don't have any toys, or we have this toy and we're thinking about doing this thing. Like, what do you suggest? We don't know what we're doing. Like, that's so normal. It's so encouraged. That's literally what the people who work there are there for and like trained in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, Gabby, do you feel like we solved your problem?
I mean, I'm just going to steal Claire's words. I think you guys have helped me put the pen in my hand to write the next chapter.
I love that.
I love that too. Yeah. Well, you were such a fantastic caller, and we love that you actually like did all of the homework that you were assigned, and you came back with.
Fun.
Good. Yeah. And hopefully maybe we'll have you come back on as a follow-up show a few months down the line.
Sure.
Yeah.
It'd be my pleasure. You guys are fantastic.
Thanks so much for sharing with us, Gabby, and letting us drive your sex life.
Yeah, exactly.
Step right up. Whoever's next, you're not going to regret it.
All right. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. Okay. Well, Claire, how do you feel like that went?
Oh my God. I feel like that was awesome. I just love the way that they reintegrated their other word. And it feels like you can feel the palpable excitement that Gabby has around it. And I think that's so special.
Yeah, I think it's really special too. She also seems like somebody who's just really good at doing their homework. But like she said, this was really fun homework to do. Yeah. So and I also like the extra questions that she brought, getting advice.
Great. Yeah. I think the thing is about so many of those questions is that everyone is asking themselves those questions. Like, I think we could have like just generalized that so much. And so I'm really happy that she was able to bring those to this part of the episode.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just, when you have, talks about sex and preferences, and you kind of like get into this really like fun, playful space, there's a lot of invisible landmines, right, that you're going to like accidentally walk over. And she talked about one that she didn't expect. And it's tricky. Like, you're going to like, you might respond to it in a way of just like, fuck, like, no. And like, be like, this isn't okay. Or like you sort of like both get into your corners or something. He might have been feeling a lot of shame because he probably doesn't want to react that way. She might be feeling really disappointed. And then you're both kind of like triggered by each other. So it's really important to set an intention that like things may come up. You're going to be open to whatever comes up. And like I was kind of trying to say that, like, for me, I guess I'll just talk about me. Like,
okay, Jeff.
I do love to talk. If I have to talk about me, I'll talk about me. Yeah. the part of me that like is intimidated by sex toys or dildos or something, like that doesn't align with who I really am or who I want to be, but it's still there. So
It's
I still
a
have to
part
kind
of
of like,
you. Right.
it's a part of me. And if I can get mad at it, but that's not really helpful. My partner can get mad at it. That's also not super helpful because now I feel like doubly mad at it if you're like annoyed with me, right? So I have to like find compassion for it. It's helpful if my partner finds compassion for it. It's also understandable if my partner like rolls their eyes like, really, dude? I thought you were better than this.
Well, I don't. Well, and that's putting a moral, standpoint on it. But I think part of this, I think the beauty of having these conversations clothed and outside of the bedroom, which she mentioned she did, is that these things will come up. And that's why I really encourage people to do it outside of like a sexual land, because then you're just doubly naked if you're doing it already naked, right? And so this way you can be like ideally a little bit more in your power because you're in a kind of neutral zone to have these potentially difficult conversations. And like, that's the thing is I encourage that so strongly because we are all going to step on landmines because sex is such a vulnerable topic for almost everyone. And no one was taught how to have these conversations.
And the messages we've received from all over the place are fucking weird.
They are fucking weird. That's why I have this job to redo those messages.
Yeah, exactly. Getting it from like religion, Hollywood, celebrities,
parents,
like,
peers, porn, Playboy.
Oh, right.
How many P names can I come up with?
So it's sort of like a never-ending journey of growth. Identifying where the landmines are, being compassionate about it, and then trying to work through them. And knowing that they're always going to kind of be there maybe for the rest of your life in some sort of form or fashion.
Yeah.
Right?
The goal is never to get rid of them. The goal is to just try and react to them in a different, more compassionate way.
Exactly. Well, Claire, I feel like you are like such an ideal guest host for this very specific call. And I can't wait to have you on again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Yeah. Can you tell people where they can find you if they want to learn more about you?
Yeah, you can find me on Sex Clarified, spelled normally with a D at the end, Sex Clarified, on all platforms. I post even more on Instagram because TikTok takes down half my shit because it says sex.
Right. Okay, thanks, and I'll talk to you later, Claire.
Okay, bye.